craving for chicken nuggets, which is pretty unusual for me. I've been a vegetarian for most of my life, and I literally cannot remember the last time I ate a chicken nugget. I mean, literally, which is kind of sad because I really liked chicken nuggets as a kid, and there is definitely part of me that wishes, you know, when I get that nostalgic craving for some kind of snacks, that I can go to McDonald's and get some nuggets and dip them in honey like I always used to do. But I can't do that because it will make me sick. And even a lot of the fake meats today, like, you know, the Impossibles and the Simulates and all the other plant-based meat alternatives have done such a good job at replicating the meatiness of meat without actually being meat that I can't tell the difference. And my body does not like meat and meat adjacent things. If I eat them, I get sick. So I'm a vegetarian. I don't remember the last time I ate a chicken nugget, but I really had this craving for them. I was at the grocery store recently and I saw that there were Dino Nuggets by Impossible and Simulate. And I thought, what better way to see if these are snacks that I can indulge in every once in a while, or if they are just too chickeny for me. So I bought a bag of each of them and I made dinosaur nugget risotto. So if you want to see that recipe and see that process, you can subscribe to my newsletter called Risotto Tuesday. It's on Substack. I will put the link in the comments. But in this video today, I thought it would be fun to record some of my process for doing the art for this chicken nugget risotto newsletter. Because chicken nuggets are so nostalgic and dinosaur nuggets are just wonderful. I got inspired to make a series of playful dinosaur nugget paintings. I was inspired by the little McDonald's sauce cups that you would dip nuggets in. I have, this one's actually from Sonic. I literally went to Sonic and I got some fries so I could get the sauce cup to use for reference. But I thought, wouldn't it be really cute if I put some dinosaurs in little sauce packets like they were taking a dip in the pool? So my first painting in this series, I'm calling Dino Nessie because I am thinking about that famous picture of the Loch Ness Monster. And I'm thinking about her swimming in a little dipping cup of ketchup. The first thing that I'm going to do is put together a reference board on Milanote, and I'm just gonna grab some images of all of the different components that are going to go into this painting, and then I'll be able to see at a glance some of the ideas that I have in my head, and it just helps to externalize the process a little bit and give me things to look at when I'm sketching, things to look at when I'm painting. It gives me something to come back to when I remember, oh, this is what I had as an idea for this part of the painting. And if I get into the painting and I decide that a reference doesn't fit me anymore, I can ignore it. But at least then I'm ignoring it from a point of knowledge and not going into the painting without any knowledge at all. Before I make the Milanote board and actually get into the process of working on the art, I went ahead and I added it as a project to my Notion. Notion is a project management tool that helps me keep all of my art projects together. This is not a sponsored ad. It's literally just a tool that I use. And this template, this project tracker template, and the creative brief that you see right now was created by Sketches of Shay. It's a free template that she made. I find it really useful. I will drop the link to that in the description as well. Now that I have a general idea of the aesthetic that I want for this painting and some of the things that I want to look for references, I went ahead and I created a new empty Millinote board and split screened that with Pinterest. I love looking at Pinterest for references to things. I'll never go in and just copy something that I see, but I grab 5 or 6 images that I like and I kind of meld those together with what I'm already thinking about to get into the painting. So of course I have to have this classic photograph of Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster. That's definitely going to be the basis of my painting. I did grab some other pictures of the Loch Ness Monster as inspiration, but I did a bad job of centering my video on the screen, so you can't see them. I'm jumping ahead to my inspiration for the ketchup water ripples. I really, really love the painter Andrea England. I think she does a really gorgeous job of capturing movement of water and movement of air. She literally lives on a boat and sails around and makes these amazing paintings. So I wanted to grab a couple references from her to use as inspiration for my ketchup in the little dipping cup. I mean, look, isn't that just so gorgeous how she captures the movement of the water? I'm obsessed. I think it's so cool and so beautiful and so active. I really love it. And here is my completed Millinote board. So I definitely grabbed the original Loch Ness Monster photograph as well as a couple of artist renditions of it. And then I pulled in the Andrea England water inspiration. I also went ahead and I made a color palette of my orange for my chicken nugget, my red for my ketchup, and then a little bit of just slightly off-white gray color for the actual dipping cup as well. I've got a picture there of ketchup in a little cup so I can see the swirls in that photo. And then up in that top left corner, I've also got a couple of dinosaur nugget references to look at as well. So yeah, this will just give me a starting point to look at. Now that I have these references collected, I feel ready to go ahead and get started on my sketch. And here's where I started to make my first mistake. I thought to myself, you know, that looks okay. The proportions look all right. That'll be fine. I will work it out once I get it onto the watercolor paper. But I did not give myself enough of a map. I just jumped straight into this graphite transfer step because I was impatient to get to painting. And I really wish that I had spent more time on my initial sketch and really taken the time and the care to make sure that all of my lines were perfect, that all of my angles were good, that my corners looked right before I transferred it to the paper. Faded, but you can still see it, which is just how I want it to be. I don't want to see a lot of the pencil lines showing through the watercolor, even though I might go over and line it with pen ink after I'm done. I'm not sure about that. I haven't decided. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay down the first washes. I'm getting right on in there with my chicken nugget mixture. This is mostly quinacridone gold. There's a little touch of pyrrole crimson in there to warm it up a bit, and then a tiny, tiny, tiny touch of phthalo blue green shade, just to tilt it a little bit towards brown and away from being more orangey. Phthalo blue is such a powerful color that I only needed to touch my brush to it to get enough pigment to turn it away from being orange and into something a little bit browner. You really do not need very much. So I am really not thrilled about this smudge there. I decided to keep painting on this anyway because it's a shame to just give up and start over immediately. And I think there are two pathways forward that I'm likely to take. One, this will be a sample painting, this will be a study, and then if I'm happy with it, I'll repaint it afterwards. I'm sure I will learn something from this painting. Or two, if I turn out to really like this painting, what I might do is go ahead and just paint most of the background or the entire rest of the paper with an opaque gouache. I think gouache could give a really interesting contrast to the transparent watercolor of the subject. I was already thinking that if I ended up doing a shadow on this whole subject, it would probably not be a realistic shadow, but sometimes I'll draw just a chunky line underneath as a kind of painterly shadow, just as something to anchor it to the ground. So maybe painting the whole background like in blue gouache would be an interesting painterly way to rescue this. Or maybe it turns out that I end up really liking the subject of it and I'll photograph it and make it digital, and then it doesn't matter so much what happens to the background because I will already have done the conversion to digital. So I'm not thrilled about this, but it's not the end of the world. There are pathways forward, there are different ways that I can rescue it, and the path that I take will kind of depend on how I feel about the rest of the painting. I brushed all of the salt off of the chicken Nessie, and I think it turned out okay, but I'm not loving it. I think the grain of salt was a little bit too small for this scale, and so you end up seeing little spots around. I don't mind this texture up by the head, so I think this painting will probably end up being more of a draft than the final one. And what I will either do is sample a different grain of salt. I think I have some big Malden salt flakes around. I think I also have some Morton kosher salt around. So I might do some samples with different sizes of salt to see what I like better, or I might just stick with the salt and put it on a lot more densely so that the texture blends together into an overall texture rather than being kind of individual spots. Because I think this looks more like a chicken nugget texture than this area does, for example. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start painting the ketchup base. I kind of want to keep the first layer of it fairly light because I want to be able to go in and add color swirls later. You can never get your lights back in watercolor. So it's always better to start light and get darker than to start dark and be stuck. Okay, so I put another layer of the red on and it smoothed it out a lot, so I'm pretty happy with how that looks. Unfortunately, that means that the next thing I have to do is paint the actual cup, and that's the part that I'm most apprehensive about because I don't have a lot of experience of painting white things on white paper. I know that a little bit of pigment will go a long way, and I'm pretty nervous that I'm going to end up screwing it up. But that's why we're treating this like a demo. We're testing it, and it's okay if I screw it up. I'm also planning to go in with some pen and ink afterwards and probably give some definition to the shapes. I'm kind of wondering if I should do that ahead of time so that I have a container to paint in. I know that I have the container of the graphite lines, but I'm sort of wondering if I should do that ahead of time or if I should wait until the end and then maybe even do it with a ruler so it's very, very crisp. But maybe what I'll do instead is avoid the question of what to do with the cup, and instead I will just go ahead and add in some of the texture on the ketchup and add in the little eye, and he's gonna have a little smile there. Maybe I'll just go ahead and add in that texture and then come back to the question of how to paint the cup afterwards. am going to leave this painting here. It's definitely not perfect, but I think I'm pretty happy with it as long as I'm treating it like a sketch and not the final product. There are definitely some things that I want to improve on in the next iteration of this painting. I think these lines, these little squiggles here, both kind of give the vibe of the sauce packet, but also kind of look like an outdoor swimming pool, like an above ground swimming pool vibe, which I like, but I do think that I could work on the perspective a little bit more, and if the tops of these kind of disappear under this lip, it'll make this lip look a little bit more dimensional. I might also add a little shadow in under there. This ink is waterproof, but I don't think I waited long enough for it to dry all the way, so it did lift up a little bit when I put a wash over it. So that's definitely something I will need to take into consideration. I'm also pretty happy with the ketchup swirls after I put some of the ink swirls in on there, but I think I will work on my sketch a little bit more and develop that a little bit more to give it more of an authentic dunk vibe. Right now I was just kind of freehanding it, and I think you can tell. I'm pretty happy with how the line work looks on this whole thing. I do think the ink brings it all together. This is Kakamori Mukuri, which is a really lovely waterproof pigmented ink, and it's a nice off black brown color. So it almost gives the effect of black ink, but it's not as harsh. It reads as black, but it isn't black, and I think that helps it blend a little bit more with the painting. I think I will also experiment with using a different method for the line art. I might go so far as to actually use a ruler on the straight edges. I'm not sure if I like that idea or if I like the slight wobbliness that comes from doing it by hand. Overall, I think it turned out pretty well for a sketch. I think I learned a lot about it. I am gonna leave the video there, so follow along if you want to see the next iteration of my chicken Nessie painting sketch. If you want to see the recipe that this was inspired by, subscribe to my Substack. It's called Risotto Tuesday. I will put a link in the description. You can also find my social media links in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.